dominant in an easy win in the fourth quarter. What was your primary takeaway?
Yeah, just what you said. Inside, they had no answer. It was like a Brook Lopez dunk fest. I've never seen Brook Lopez dunk that much in his entire career. Bobby Portis was all over the place. They just dominated the interior. But more than that, Greeny, it just didn't feel like a conference finals game 5, pivotal, maybe finals berth on the line without the two superstars in the game. It felt like a little bit of a bummer, but you got to credit the Bucks. They've been resilient. No matter who's been injured on their team or the other team, they bring their defense, they bring their hard hats every game, and you got to give them a lot of credit for that.
Okay, and so they take the 3-2 series lead, and Wendy and Vince Carter chimed in on that a little bit earlier. So I want to go to a different topic here that I know a lot of people who follow the sport have been paying attention to. So last night, with Giannis missing the game, he becomes the 10th All-Star from this season to miss a playoff game, which shatters the previous record, which had been 6, and that doesn't include Trae Young. You might say, why isn't Trae Young on that screen? It's because he wasn't an All-Star this year, but he certainly fits into the category of that caliber of player. So it's 11 players of that magnitude who have missed at least one playoff game, which again is by far the most that we have ever seen. And so Vince is one who has been in this competition many times in your career. I would ask you, do you believe that when it is all said and done, you see the Suns coming through a Western Conference where they didn't have to play, Anthony Davis got hurt, Jamal Murray wasn't there, Kawhi Leonard wasn't there. Will that be attached to this? Will there be some sort of psychological asterisk attached to whatever team winds up winning this whole thing?
In my opinion, Greeny, that's tough to say because let's say if Chris Paul did not return and the Lakers move on, or Chris Paul doesn't return because of COVID or whatever the case may be. So I think you deal with what's in front of you and what you're dealt with, and you move on. Can you crack the code? Can you still figure out a way to get the job done? And it's unfortunate because, like you said, it's a bummer. You didn't see the best players. You're not seeing the best players on the floor all the time, and you're seeing the other guys have to carry the load. But that's a part of the game. That's a part of, can you crack the code? Can your other guys crack the code? Stay ready and figure it out. So, it's unfortunate because we're seeing some guys go down because of actual injury, not because of the condensed season.
And so I want to admit to everyone now, as I sit here and smile, I set this up because I had Brian Windhorst on my radio show talking about this the other day, and I know he has very strong feelings on the subject. Wendy, the floor is yours.
Greeny, I reject the entire premise of an asterisk when it comes to situations like this. The fact that all of these guys are injured only underscores how difficult it is to make it through this. Let's just stay with the Phoenix Suns. Let's go back in time, 2005. That was one of the great teams of the last 20 years. They probably won the title that year, but Joe Johnson gets tripped up, falls on his face, and breaks a bone around his eye, and it derails their whole team. Let's go a couple years later, 2007. I promise you, if they beat the Spurs in that series, that they're going to kill the Cavs in LeBron's first finals. But they lose one game because they can't get a bloody nose on Steve Nash to stop, and they lose the pivotal game because Amari Stoudemire got suspended controversially. Should we go slap asterisks on those Spurs titles? You can go through year by year by year and look at situations that happened, and I would even argue that the fact that this run has been so unpredictable and in and out for all of these players, that they're standing there in the finals is a testament to the way that they've played and the way that they operate their organization. And so, to me, not only should there not be an asterisk this season, it should even be uplifted for surviving this gauntlet.
Go ahead, Zach Lowe, follow that.
Well, I was going to say, Wendy covered it. Don't take this conversation to Phoenix Suns fans. You're going to hear all about the Steve Nash hip check and the bloody noses and broken eye sockets and a lot of unpleasant topics. And to the Suns' credit, when they got the Lakers without Anthony Davis, they rolled them. When they got the Nuggets without Jamal Murray, they swept them. The Clippers series, yeah, that was tough, but they put a stamp on it with the blowout at the end. And guess what? The Jazz, now they had injuries too. They couldn't beat the Clippers one time without Kawhi Leonard. So the Suns have done their job. Look, we don't have to be so dumb about this, right? Every year is different. Every championship feels a little different. The 2011 Mavericks, we remember that team because that was the Dirk title, the guy that stayed. The 2017-18 Warriors were like, well, of course they won. They're a super team. And why is this conversation also not about the Eastern Conference teams? Like, it's always about the Suns. What about the teams that didn't have to face Kyrie Irving or got to face James Harden on one leg? And that said, every season's different. We can remember them differently, but respect whoever wins this title.
I love the topic. I love the passion. It's certainly something everybody is talking about, and we will continue in a little bit. Guys, sit tight. Much more hoops as we go. Thank you. In the meantime, really the most transformational story in sports right now is name, image, and likeness. Yesterday, former USC star Reggie Bush released a statement making it clear he wants his Heisman from 2005 back in the wake of the NCAA officially granting athletes the right to profit from their name, image, and likeness. Bush returned his Heisman in 2010 after the NCAA ruled that he received impermissible benefits while playing for the Trojans. Reggie released a statement yesterday that said, in part, "It is my strong belief that I won the Heisman Trophy solely due to my hard work and dedication on the football field. It is also my firm belief that my records should be reinstated." There is obviously a lot to talk about there, and this is the man to talk about it with. Paul Finebaum gets up with us early here. Paul, thank you as always. I'll start with the most direct question. Should Reggie Bush get his Heisman back?
Yes, he should get his Heisman back. And Greeny, we're not in a court of law here. We're giving opinions based on what we know. And very, very rarely does the NCAA go back retroactively. They're not going to in this case. But the Heisman Trust can. It is within their power to say, you know what? After further review, he deserves the Heisman Trophy. And I think they should do that. And I think it would send a tremendous message across the country, if not the world, that things have changed. And have they ever after yesterday?
Well, so in his statement yesterday, he suggested that the Heisman Trust, which to your point, can do whatever it wants. The Heisman Trust is an independent entity. No one is telling them what they can and cannot do. He, in his statement, made it very clear. They're suggesting that, at least at this moment, they are not inclined to do so. What is your reaction to that?
Well, I think they're caught off guard. I mean, this is not a group of people that is very nimble. I mean, they are the Heisman Trust, and if you've been there, and I know you have, they're still living in maybe another century, forget another decade. But I think, with what happened yesterday, I mean, we saw it all day long, Greedy. Things are changing at the fastest pace we've ever seen. I mean, I know Independence Day is on Sunday, but in many ways, Independence Day for college athletes was yesterday. And I think it would just be magnanimous of an organization that is truly, in rarefied air in what we look at. It's the most respected and venerable award in all of college football. And this is something, we're not talking about O.J. Simpson here. We're talking about Reggie Bush, who, whatever he received, and it's been talked about countless episodes for 10 years, it did not affect what he did on the field. He was not given an unfair advantage on the field. He was not taking any illegal substance. He did what he did. We all saw it. He got the Heisman. Now give it to him back. I mean, it's really not hard. It's a matter of getting a group of people together in a boardroom and having a vote and doing the right thing.
And very quickly, Paul, and this isn't a very quick answer, but in sort of summing it up, what impact do you think this has on the competitive nature of big-time college sports as we know them? That seems to be some people's concern, that this will create greater advantages for the haves or for some people versus others, that there'll be a competitive issue here. What is your perspective?
Greeny, I think the competitive advantage has already been there because of a subject we talked about ad nauseum here, and that's the college football playoff. That has now been changed, at least in 2 years or in 5 years. But for all the competitive advantages the big-time schools are getting, the stories yesterday were heartwarming about young people who have never gotten anything and never would get anything. And I think we just have to accept the good with the bad, that a lot of people yesterday are prospering from it. And I think that's the thing we have to remember, not whether Alabama wins another national championship because of recruiting.
Right. Sometimes you do the right thing because it's the right thing, and you live with the consequences. Paul Finebaum, outstanding. Thank you for your perspective, and we'll talk further later. In other news yesterday, the Washington football team in the NFL has been fined $10 million after an investigation into allegations of sexual harassment over a 15-year period. Over 150 people were interviewed, and as a result, Commissioner Roger Goodell concluded that the team's workplace culture was, quote, highly unprofessional, where numerous women reported having experienced sexual harassment. Washington owner Daniel Snyder issued a statement in which he apologized. Here's a bit more of that, saying, quote, I feel great remorse for the people who had difficult, even traumatic experiences while working here. I'm truly sorry for that. I can't turn back the clock. but I promise that nobody who works here will ever have that kind of experience again, at least not as long as Tanya and I are the owners of this team. Tanya is his wife. Snyder has ceded day-to-day operations of the team to his wife, Tanya Snyder, who was named co-CEO earlier this week. The attorneys who represent 40 former Washington employees said in a statement that the NFL chose to, quote, protect owner Dan Snyder, and said the fine amounted to pocket change. We will continue in just a moment. Coming up, it has been a rocky start for Urban Meyer, who's now been disciplined by the NFL before he's even coached a game. Is this going to work in